channel.
Right now, a lot of us are probably enjoying those holiday gifts or preparing for the new year. But it is important to remember that for a lot of people, this is not the most wonderful time of the year. My guest today is a spoken word artivist, and she is here to give us some tips on how we can combat seasonal depression this holiday season. Welcome back to the Word Podcast. Once again, I am Jackie Ray, and I'm here with Dr. Nooshin. I am so excited to have her here. I'm going to let her say her last name because I butcher names. It's something I'm known for, and I don't want to be known that way with you.
You will not be the first one to butcher my name, but I appreciate it. Thank you. It's Nooshin Valizadeh, and in the poetry community and in the education community, people just call me Dr. V as like my stage name.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, but Nooshin is totally fine. Noosh, whatever you feel.
Dr. V, I like it. It just sounds so official. I'm so glad that you're here. So I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit more about her. She's going to get into a lot of it as well. But the thing that I really love is her title says, she is an equity and inclusion expert, trainer, and spoken word artivist. I love the artivist. So tell us a little bit about what artivism means.
Absolutely. So I didn't coin the word, but I just, heard it here and there in the different spoken word spaces. And it really just spoke to me. It's literally art plus activism becomes artivism. So whatever your form of art is, whether it is street art or painting or sculpting, photography, for me, it's been spoken word, dance or instrument, whatever, using it as a form of activism. So for me, I think it's multiple different areas that activism could be to promote a social justice cause, whether it's end child separation, whatever your causes are that you want to write about or paint about, that's artivism for sure, promoting that. But also your story. So to me, telling your story, and if it's your personal story, everyone's story is their own. Mm-hmm. And if you don't tell it somehow in some form, someone else might tell the story of you or your people their way. So even just telling your story, your struggle, whether it's, about going through miscarriage, things that aren't talked about or normalized, or your depression or your ethnic identity, that to me is also artivism, right? Expressing who you are and telling it in a way that you're channeling a feeling and kind of getting it off your chest, using it as a form of therapy. Those are all part of it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're going to get a new perspective because we're going to be talking about seasonal depression today. We've talked about depression on this show before, and we've had true, these are the people that you go to counseling for. They're going to give you therapy and they're going to walk you through that. But I think that sometimes when you're just going through your day-to-day life, you kind of need tools. Maybe you can't get to that therapist at that right moment. So before we dive into that, though, I just want to, because you are a different doctor, so I just want to kind of dive into your background a little bit. Let's start with college. What did you go to college for? And did you know right away what field you wanted to get into?
Oh my gosh, no.
Does anybody?
No.
Some people do. I knew.
I don't know.
But I wasn't sure.
I mean, I'm Persian, so everyone thinks they're going to go into medical doctor route, right? And then I thought that too. I was like, I'm going to be a pediatrician. And then I was like, I don't like blood. This isn't going to go well.
Yeah.
So I was having the nausea and all those things. No, I just really, to be honest, my educational journey is interesting. I was not a great student, and I got asked to leave, not a formal expulsion, but I did asked to leave of my high school. So I spent my last 2 years of high school just trying to see if I can graduate in this random other private school that my family begged them to let me in at. So really, I was just happy to go to a college at all. I was doing a lot of bad things, but really I was just misunderstood and didn't feel like I belonged. So I rebelled, and that rebellion was not necessarily channeled in the appropriate ways. I hadn't really explored too much of channeling it with my creativity or to really even name it. I just was like, something's wrong with me. I'm an outcast. So I'm going to be who you're telling me I am and be bad, whatever that means. Starting fights, yelling at teachers, calling out racism in my classrooms.
Right. We've had this conversation offline, which we'll definitely have another time on a different podcast, though. But yeah.
So when I went so I just was like, I just want to graduate and go get into a college. I got into a college that was all about your individuality. It's called Clark University. It's like a very hippie-ish kind of college. And so I went in there and I did my bachelor, and I just excelled because I felt like I belonged. All of a sudden I had professors who cared about me. I had just gone to Iran and I had seen a lot of like hardship over there, and there were protests happening there just like similar to what's happening now. And I just felt like I was accepted, and folks were reaching out to me. There was a community. I was really close to the folks in the Black Student Union. I joined that group because they didn't have like a Persian student union. So they were accepting. So I was just really involved on campus. All of a sudden, the girl who was like barely getting C's in high school, I had 3.7 GPA. I finished my bachelor's early. It was in communications and culture. Got into an MBA program at age like 19 while I was there, and I did it, and I had a scholarship for it. So I graduated just around age 22 with an MBA in finance. Worked in the finance world. Went to India as a finance and tax expert for Deloitte & Touche to train folks in India. And when I was there, I realized, oh my God, I love adult education. So I was there to train them in tax and accounting and finance. But what I loved was just like being with so many different types of people and learning from them, not just me teaching, but like actually learning about their cultures, learning about how different folks learn in different ways. And that kind of inspired me to change my career, pursue a doctorate in education, and just start kind of connecting with different students, different faculty.
And you understand trauma, and you help talk a little bit about that and how that kind of is part of who you are as Dr. V.
Absolutely. So after I got my doctorate, I was teaching at USC, and then I was teaching at UCLA in like the education, social justice spaces and departments. And I just felt like, wow, I wish I was trauma informed. What is that? What does that mean? And so I looked into it, and this organization that helped me a lot as a survivor of sexual assault had a program where you would take courses twice a week. It was pretty intense for 3 or 4 months of the summertime. And it was all about becoming trauma informed on violence prevention. So sexual, domestic, gang, even like red flags, teen dating, things like that. They just had a speaker series. They had a lot of coursework, and I just went. I never missed a session. And at the end of it, I got a certificate for being certified as trauma informed. And that also allowed me to be able to do that preventive education for 7th graders all the way through adults. And but also the preventative care. Like these are things you can do before it gets to that point, not just the intervention piece. These are things you can notice before you get so angry you hurt someone. These are some of the red flags for that, and ways you can get help and reach resources. Whereas a lot of the work that happens in America is really treating once the damage has come. Not doing the preventative work, but rather, oh, now we need to do something about this. It's like, now it's too late almost.
Right. Now I think we're at the point in our society where it's like, okay, we know people suffer from depression. We're a little bit more open. I think the number is right now well over 18 million people in our country suffer from that's like 1 in 10 people. So that's a lot of people. But then now we're getting into the winter months, and now I'm hearing the phrase seasonal depression, depression, which is interesting because I actually looked it up, and there's actually a clinical name for it, which is Seasonal Affective Disorder, which means you're affected by either the season or colder months. So it's a big deal. And so I just wanted to talk about some of the things that people could do to, prevent that a little bit. I'm just going to share a little bit of my story because I've never been one of these people that suffers from depression. It's just not, my family were a bunch of jokesters. We laugh a lot.
Knock on wood for that.
Right.
For you.
Knock on wood. Yeah. However, my dad passed in 2015. He passed on December 15th of 2015, right before Christmas, and Christmas is his birthday. So that Christmas, we don't really celebrate in the conventional sense anyway, but it's still his birthday, and it's still a big deal. So we didn't really get to celebrate it because obviously we were planning for the funeral and stuff like that. And when you're kind of in that fix everything mode and, take care of my mom and make sure the funeral is great and everything, you don't really have that grieving moment, right? So then I come back to LA because my family's in Colorado. So I come back to LA and I'm good for about 2-3 months. And then it just hits me. And then my hair is falling out. I can't concentrate. I can't maintain any sort of personal relationships because I don't really want to be around people. I want to be by myself, you know? And which I thought was normal. I thought I was just kind of going through the process, but that lasted an entire year. And then finally I got counseling and then I was, you know, back to myself. However, every year around Christmas time, all that comes back. You know, December 15th is around the corner and then Christmas is around the corner. So I find myself putting myself back in this cocoon because, you know, I don't want to be that burden to other people. I don't want to I don't want you to feel my sadness. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I do think that kind of self-isolation is bad. So, and I don't think I'm the only one who's probably lost a loved one. And then that's why this time of year is so hard because you're having to, you know, be this most wonderful time of the year. That's how that song goes, right? And it's not for you. So what are some of the things that you would tell people like myself that have lost someone that we can kind of do, number one, to recognize that we're in this moment and then help do some things to kind of help us get out of that moment if we can't get to that therapist right then and there?
First of all, I want to honor your story and your dad, and thank you so much for sharing that. You know, we as women of color and Black women, we internalize so much.
Yeah.
And then we respond with hair falling out or a bald spot here or acne or, you know, so many different things that happen because of the internalization of that feeling. Yeah. So the first thing I would say is just really recognizing when it's happening, you know? And again, I'm not a psychologist by any means, but this is some of the work that I've done is recognizing those feelings. And this is part of the trauma informed. Like, what are some things? Can we journal? Like, journaling is so helpful. And I don't mean just to purge, right? That's helpful too, but just journaling almost to like keep yourself in and notice like, wow, this was a great week. What was different this week? Oh, I was like eating more at home. Maybe you're eating more fruit. And you can say that's a good part of my recipe for healing. And noticing instead. And so maybe in those few months before you weren't noticing those little things and all of a sudden it hits you deep. You're not noticing the smaller responses or, oh, I'm trying to distract myself or I'm trying to do this and not being like, let me take a breath. Can I meditate and really get some clarity in what's happening for me? So that's one thing I would say is kind of trying to journal and write or even do art, whatever your form is to figure out, learn about what you're doing the day to day or even just every few days so that you can kind of see when it's coming a little bit. And another thing I would say is you're absolutely right. The seasonal depression, some people, it's just from not being out in the sun. Right. And for a lot of people, the holidays are really, really, really like devastating for them. You know, they've lost a loved one, or maybe they aren't even, you know, in that celebratory type of mood that year, or they've lost, like for me, I had miscarriages. So it was really hard to see all these people with their new baby things around the holidays during that time. And for other folks, it's really just like a traumaversary. So that's a word that I, you know, put in my poem and have 3 poems about my own traumaversary, and naming that has been helpful for people. Like recognizing during this time, it's this actual thing that happens to my body. It's like a clock that's letting me know that the smells and the air and the months and the commercials are reminding me of an annual trauma that I went through. And so some of that is like, again, planning ahead. What am I going to do during that time? How do I keep myself healthy? And how do I embrace that? Let myself have spaces to cry and be in a certain support space and do things that are going to be healing, not just Band-Aid cover-ups for what's going on. Of course, I always say, in addition to just like purge writing and journaling, like there's certain ways, like prompts. Some people need prompts, and it's just really weird because before I came, I was like, I have a prompt for her, and I had it didn't make sense why I had the prompt for you. But now it makes sense. So it's weird. There's some psychic energies that happen with this work. It's the spirit of the art, right? I always say, like, it's a last poem in my book. It's like, you know, let go, let the spirit of the art create you. Like, let go and let that happen. So a really easy prompt is a prefix poem or a suffix poem. So what that means is every poem, the poem that you write has a rhythm established that's either one word or one sentence that starts each stanza or ends each stanza. Okay. So like a suffix poem, it would be ending the stanzas like still I rise, right? So Maya Angelou has her beautiful poem, and each stanza she ends it with but still I rise, something like that. Or you can begin like the way my book starts, Women with an X. I explain what that is in like 3 or 4 stanzas, and each stanza starts with women. So for some reason, I was like, I have a prompt for her. And the word was Christmas. And obviously it is, Christmas time, but in my mind, it wasn't like Christmas. I love, the Christmas dinner and Santa stockings. Like for me, it was like, there's something heavy happening. Yeah. And that was the prompt. So I would say during this holiday time, start with that. Give yourself a timer. Like if we were at lunch right now, I would say, okay, we're going to put a timer on. Let's do it for 8 minutes. And just try and start everything you're going to talk about with the word Christmas or with the word winter or what I love about this time or what pains me right now. And just begin each stanza with that and see what you come up with.
What you just said just resonated with me. Like, yeah, write it down, but share it with somebody, because not only can they help you, get what you're feeling down, that might be something that can touch them as well. So it's like you can like pay it forward through your art. So that just resonated with me for some reason. But I love how you are giving people another outlet, because I think sometimes we get so stuck into, this is the way I have to deal with this. Like I have to take medication, I have to go see a therapist. This is the way. And I think that sometimes, we're not all going to fit into that square peg. We might need extra things. So I love how you talk about, expressing yourself in ways that make you comfortable. If you're feeling SAD, which is the acronym for Seasonal Affective Disorder, there are some things that doctors suggest you do, one of which Dr. V already mentioned, and that is being prepared. Ready your mind for the upcoming season change or the traumaversary, and make sure you prioritize doing things that bring you joy. Could be baking, could be journaling like Dr. V says. Whatever it is, make sure you make time for that. In addition, doctors say make sure you engage in social activities, which I can relate to, because the default for a lot of us when we go through things is to isolate. But do things with your friends and family or people that care about you, who you may feel comfortable opening up to. Exercise and sunshine. We know exercise gets those endorphins going, and our body actually needs the sun, so don't be afraid to get outside. And of course, reach out to your doctor or helplines if your depression becomes unmanageable. But I still love Dr. V's plan of just creating art from the pain. Some of our favorite songs and art pieces were created that way, and it gives us a release. So I want you to hear a poem from Dr. V's book of poetry called Women, spelled WOMXN.
Is about the traumaversary, and it's called When the War Has Ended. Okay. So this will be something you can all kind of take with you. So that's an example of a prefix poem, along with Still I Rise by Maya Angelou being the suffix. So please work on that type of exercise. Oh, homework.
Love it. Everybody got homework.
But when the war has ended, peace is not happiness. It is when a war has ended. I refuse to be numb. I now know there is a tomorrow, and like a fairy tale, the sun will spin my pail to gold, place her warm hands on my face, kiss my cheeks for blush, and lift my lips up into a smile. I can find love etched into a sidewalk. I can let the beach sand massage my toes, drape my mother's silks over me as a gown, and become drunk from the smell of jasmine petals placed around my curls for a crown. But tonight, tears are free to stream and become one with the sea. Embracing my wounds reminds me I am real. I can honor the pain that has made me me with a celebration of acceptance and tranquility. Happy traumaversary to me. How old is the new me now? And again, let's like don't go wallowing in the misery, but it's okay to accept it and remember we gotta honor those feelings, knowing tomorrow you can go up and get yourself that sandwich. Yep. And, talk to someone, talk to community. But if you feel like you need to cry, give yourself, embrace that hour, whatever it is too. Yeah.
I love it. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Word with Dr. V. We've got so many good nuggets that you can just take on your personal journey. As if you're fighting seasonal depression, I'm obviously hoping that you're not, but if you are, don't forget that you have tools within yourself that can help while you're actually going out and getting help as well. So I'm so excited.
And if you write your poem, if you write that prefix, suffix, or whatever, send it over to us.
Yes,
We wanna
send it
hear it.
over. Dr. V, tell them your Instagram page.
Yes, it's at Dr. Nooshin V. So DrNooshinV. That's my Instagram. And if you follow Never Speak, it's just Never Speak LB. And you can see when we have different open mic events and things like that. And just, hit us up. Anyone from the crew would be happy to connect with folks and do a workshop with you. We'll set up a Zoom and be like, hey, it's winter. Who's feeling like, what's the theme? Anybody have something in mind? And we're going to, give it 8 minutes. Let's all write, share if you feel comfortable or don't, and come to any of our events that we host as well. So
yes, I hope if any of you need somebody to reach out to other than the conventional, your parents or family, friends, or a therapist, then you'll definitely take her up on it and get some help journaling and writing, because I think it's going to be great. And don't forget, I'm Jackie Ray. And remember, if you have to speak a word, make it a good one.